Astra Travelers, and welcome to another episode of Tales of Teyvat, a Genshin Lore Podcast. Last week, we talked all about little baby Jet, little baby Ben Ben, and RIP to someone else. We won't spoil you too hard if you didn't listen to it. This week, we're going to be talking all about Saurian Hunter Kinich.
Are you feeling trapped? Like your life is just a weak projection of your inner self? Like you deserve to have the trembling masses bow before your feet? Well, rampage your way on over to our website, talesofteyvat.com, where Tiff has put together a menacing little visual companion for this episode and all of our sinister, all-powerful episodes.
While you're on our site, check out our past episodes and seasons, artist spotlights from the community for every topic, and some other goodies.
Finally, feel free to email us at talesofteyvatpod@gmail.com to let our murder rampage boy look at all the false emails you send us so he could decide who's next on his murder spree. Supposed murder spree.
Alleged,
supposed. Or you can tell us what topics you'd like to see in future episodes or what you thought about this week's episode. Additionally, travelers, you can feel free to check us out on Ko-fi, where you could buy us a cup of coffee, Diet Pepsi, Dr. Root Beer, Diet Root Beer, whatever you prefer.
I love a Diet Barks.
Bork?
Bork.
You can check us out there. We also have a merch shop with some shirts, hoodies, and stickers there. So definitely feel free to check it out. And you can also give us a rating wherever you listen to your podcasts to let travelers know that we aren't just keeping a murderer here with us in Angel Share, but that we are indeed sharing some fun and endearing lore, maybe.
I really kind of expected somebody to request a Farina episode after we put out the Farina episode. I was waiting for some smartass to be like, hey, when are you going to do a Farina episode?
I literally would have taken all Farina merch ever created and yeeted it off a cliff. Like into the Grand Canyon. Into Dua Lipa Gorge.
Oh, the Dua Lipa Gorge.
On to Dragon Spine. Wherever it may be. Now, I did say that we'd usually have some fun and endearing lore on this podcast, but today our lore is really sad. And it's just a heads up to travelers who might be sensitive to certain topics. Totally understandable. We want to give you a pre-warning that there will be talks of death, gambling, money problems, child abandonment, child abuse.
Spousal abuse.
I was going
to say child abandonment. That's just blanket for this entire game.
If you're playing Genshin, you should just be ready for that. Bullying, name calling.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to suggest that Kinich has one of the saddest storylines, just from a character who wouldn't know better type of thing, He doesn't have the trauma of being born into a Conrian family, but he has the trauma of being born into shithead life.
Shithead life.
Yeah. I feel for him, though. I feel like I really, after researching Kinich many, many moons ago when he first came out, I remember messaging Tiff and Brandon and being like, have you read Kinich's lore? It's so fucked. But also I connect with it so much, guys.
It's the story that should have been his story quest. I feel like he was a little cheated. Like the whole reputation, tribal reputation things is neat in Natlan, but I feel like the characters lost out on their own personal story quest. Like I almost felt like he needed almost like a hangout too. He needed something else because he didn't get all this stuff that's about him. Like he just seems like this kind of quiet, reserved.
Maybe a therapy session with Mizuki. Yeah. She could eat all his bad dreams.
We do want to give one other precursor to this as well, which is we know that 5.6 just came out and we're not touching anything in 5.6 except for saying, did Albedo murder anyone or not? And we know that Kinich is coming up. We know some stuff is coming out with him, but we just want to let you guys know that we didn't touch any of that. We didn't touch the spoilers of it. We didn't touch leaks of it. We didn't touch anything around that.
Yes, we're recording this right before it comes out, so we don't know yet.
Yeah, so you will not get spoiled. You will not, we're not spoiling any current lore or anything. Everything is stuff that you would have already known prior to. Although I'm so excited to see what Kinich does in Fontaine. My little boy is leaving the the nest.
I want him to meet Zhao. I know that that's not necessarily going to be Fontaine, but wouldn't it be awesome? Like Kinich and Zhao would be like best buds.
Oh yeah, for sure.
They'd both be like hanging out at the goth club together.
But they would never communicate.
Very true. They would just stand there together. They would just be like, yeah you. Mm-hmm.
I think the other thing is that, like most people in Kenich's life, Zhao would probably start avoiding him because of Ajaw. So now Kinich. So Kinich was one of the first characters that we were privy to see from Natlan. When we got our initial teaser trailers, we were shown Jilonin, Mualani, Kinich, Sitlali, Kachina, and Auroran. Was that, and Moika, I guess? Was that our original group of people?
Was Auroran in there?
He might not have been. It was more about the pilgrimage. It must have been Chaska and not Auroran.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we knew about Eon-san. But Kinich was like the initial trio that we were given. So
yeah, he was one of the top three, the Mualani, Kachina, Kinich. Like, your intro into Natlan. Here's these three kids.
Yeah, and he was the only guy up until Auroran in all of Natlan. No other men existed. I don't know what those NPCs are. But there was a lot of debate over Kinich when he first came out because of his appearance. People were confused about his look because they thought it was too video game-esque and pixelated. Mm-hmm. I know I personally liked it, and I feel like Natlan is so different overall than everything else we've seen that it didn't really seem to matter as much to me. But I know there was a lot of debate over that originally.
Yeah, it seems very out of nowhere. I like it. I think from an aesthetic standpoint, I think it's neat. And like you said, Natlan has a lot of interesting things, like the bold, bright colors and just the way that they changed things up in general. But it is like, why is he the only one that's a little pixelated? And then why is Ajaw completely pixelated? But it works at the same time. But I also have to put the caveat on there of I don't look too deep into those types of things where I'm just like, oh, he's really cool looking. And then I'm just like, okay. I'm easy to please, basically, is what I'm saying.
I like to think that it's maybe an ode to Genshin being a video game within Honkai. Right, it's the truth.
Amanda.
Listen.
I think they just were incorporating some more modern elements in Natlan. I mean, they did the same thing with Shilonen and her freaking DJ table, and then you have Moika driving a motorcycle.
Yeah.
And you're like, what? So, I think that was sort of the very beginning of that whole pushback. Like, why is it so modern in Natlan when they're just running around with dinosaurs at the same? I feel like they were going for like a contrast, because like it's everything's so ancient in Natlan. I think they were going for a contrast, and maybe it just didn't work as well as they were hoping.
They literally don't even have a city. I will never forget
that annoys you so much.
Their main city is just Red Bull Stadium, and it's so frustrating. It's like there's no the hotel, the restaurant, Moika's chambers, they're all within the soccer field. All of them. I hate it.
If that's all you know.
Which now is no longer even Red Bull Arena. Now they've changed the whole freaking name on you too.
What is it now?
Sports Illustrated.
Boo.
Sports Illustrated. That's hilarious. Because it's literally hosts sports.
I'm just like, can we just shorten that up to SI, please?
Here's some sports. It's illustrated for you.
It's illustrated.
I will say I'm curious I'm sorry, I'm going back to Kinich because I can't talk more about Red Bull Stadium.
You can't talk more about Natlan's lack of cities.
Yeah, I just get so mad. Like I guess it's similar to like MetLife. I don't know. Anyway, I wonder if Kenich's outfit could also be a nod to his constellation a bit. His constellation is, and please be nice to me. It's Chimera Albrius.
Probably Chimera.
Chimera. I hate when people don't pronounce H's. It just throws me off.
People, you mean languages?
Yeah,
like full-on languages?
I hate it. It just confuses my being. Chimera Albrius. So a chimera is like a mystical creature, basically. And it's actually similar to our good friend from the manga. What is his name? The evil guy who turns into a monster.
Oh my God,
I called somebody
Barnabas.
Barnabas, yeah. I'm like, wait, I called Venti him the other day.
It's kind of similar to Barnabas, where like a chimera turns into like an animal with a lion's head and a goat's body and a snake's tail and some other parts sometimes too, which I actually think Al had brought up once or twice when we talked about Barnabas.
Yeah, we were trying to figure out if it was supposed to be a chimera or like a manticore or something. But yeah, chimera can be like a ancient, like a mythological creature. I think it also has like a scientific name of just like something with two different like sets of genes or something.
Oh, maybe. But the second half of the constellation is Albrius. Now, the closest word you could really like translate that over to is albrije, which is type of Mexican folk art. So they're usually like super colorful sculptures that display like different fantasy things. They can be made out of like wood or paper mache. And it's from like the early 1900s, that type of art style. And so I wonder if his vibe and Ahaw's vibe are supposed to be kind of pulled back into like the Mexican folk art too, since we know parts of Natlan had inspiration from Mexico. Not all of it, not consistently, but we know that parts of it did.
Yeah, very much could be. I mean, in that same vein, I would have loved if they went the total Mexican folk art look. I love Mexican folk art. I think it's gorgeous. Like, it would have been cool if they kind of went down that path. But yeah, like it's a modernization of it too. It's an ode, I guess.
An homage.
But I think also because Ajaw is such a larger than life character too, it almost makes sense that he is so separate. I like that we're having like some little we have our own little like sidekicks. Like we have our own little mini paimons. Like Aoife has, I forgot Aoife's bird's name, but the one just goes,
Isn't it like
okay, dude.
Kakaru or something like that?
Something close like that. Yeah. And it's just like, what up, dude?
What's up, bro?
What's up, bro? Yeah. Love that guy. But like the fact that we have these like little, like we have our own paimons, other characters have paimons, I think are very funny. But, I mean, how is this?
Kakuku, by the way.
A cuckoo, yeah.
Kakuku bird.
What's up, bro? Just wait until I get Aoife because I'm going to annoy the crap out of both of you every time saying, like, just repeating everything. But yeah, like, I mean, I think he's a lot of fun and he's annoyingly fun. And I think that's like part of the charm, I guess, too.
So then I guess my question for you guys is like, what were your first impressions of Kinich? Seeing as we got to see him prior to Natlan being released, and then, now he is involved in the Archon Quest, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But what were some of your initial personal impressions of him?
I was sort of neutral about him. I like his design, like the colors and everything. The pixelation did bother me because I just found it confusing. Now that I know why there are pixels, it makes more sense because it's like projected phlogiston. But not knowing that at first, I was like, huh? But then after meeting him, I mean, he's so quiet and taciturn that I just felt kind of neutral about him. I was like, he kind of fits an archetype of like the silent, methodical thinker character. So I was kind of just waiting for the plot to reveal more about him.
You know what? The plot never did, but his lore definitely did.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wasn't super involved in the plot when you really think about it.
I know.
He was important, but almost like he was like the glue putting pieces together.
But was he goop? Is that what you're saying?
He was goop.
More.
He was the invisible goop. It was very important, everything that he was doing, but you just didn't really need to know it.
Yeah. He doesn't need a lot of attention.
But like he also, obviously some of his lines directly with Ajaw are very funny, but like he has some kind of like dry lines too. And there's at one point during his story where he is just like, Paimon's like, well, did you need to say it so blatant? And he's like, oh, well, I could say, maybe they were kind of hoping that this would be, that you would just kill him dead. And it was like, what? Like you put some adjectives or some prepositions and then you just blurted it out. And I kind of liked that little attitude that he has.
He's the Natlan Al-Haytham.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I was a big fan of Kinich right off the bat. I knew I'd be pulling for him, which was interesting because I didn't pull for Zhao, which is, I think, the closest comparison to Kinich. But I don't know, I just liked him right away. I knew I was going to want him. He's the only Natlan 5-star that I tried for and got, but yeah, there was something about him right away. I liked the design. I was like, I'm going to go for this guy. But So we do meet Kinich initially in the Archon Quest. So we're going to go through his slight involvement in the Archon Quest. It is important to note that as the Archon Quest starts, while we may not know this, Kinich does already know that he is one of the chosen heroes of Natlan, and that he is supposed to be a part of this big plan to bring back the heroes of the past. They're reincarnated within themselves and be one of the heroes that help Moeka, the Archon, save Natlan from the abyss. Now, a few quick things just as a recap for people who might not remember. All of these characters who are playable have an ancient name for the most part. Kinich is one of them. And an ancient name is basically a past hero, and their name gets passed down, and they get like a little stone with the name on it, and you get chosen to represent that name for whatever reason. And each name has like a different association. So Kinich is Malipo, which means turnfire or cost/price. And just a recap for travelers, turnfire is a type of fire that was really big back in Natlan as a part of the Grand Alliance. And the Grand Alliance was basically like all the tribes of Natlan coming together to build the new nation of Natlan with Ochka as their leader. And the turnfire was the fire they ended up using to oppress and kill people.
Yeah, it's frightening as fuck.
Yeah. And they use it to destroy cities. It's a great time.
Just while we're talking about it, just as a reminder of what it does and how horrible it is, people, when it's like put upon you, like you start like burning from the insides, and you get this like overwhelming feeling that you need to turn around and like look at it, almost like there's always something creepy back there trying to get you, and you turn around and then you go poof, crisp, done. Like the moment you look at it, it's behind you. It's like you're like running away from this insanity that's trying to get you.
It's like It Follows.
Yes.
That being said, if anyone happens to come across any turnfire in a bottle, I'm interested for myself.
Okay, Arlecchino.
I just want to be toast.
Oy.
But yeah, that's what turnfire is. That's a little bit about the Grand Alliance and the importance there. And ancient names do get passed down from generation to generation. It can also skip generations, so you're not always going to have a certain ancient name. So the ancient name of Amanda was first created, say, like 1,000 years ago. Amanda dies. That doesn't mean that the next year there's going to be someone gifted the ancient name of Amanda. Someone has to be worthy of the ancient name of Amanda. So it's hard. Amanda doesn't get given out very often, but it is like a thing there. So that's a little bit about ancient names. That's a little bit about the Grand Alliance. And one other thing to know about Kinich is that he's from the Scions of the Canopy, which is one of the first 3 tribes that we are given and get to explore. They are led by Wyna, who is their chief. He's pretty cool. We'll deal with him in the Archon Quest. They believe in absolute freedom. They really believe in the bond between humans and Saurians and how it really should be built on a mutual level of trust and respect. Most people from the Scions of the Canopy are skilled explorers or hunters or messengers. They are associated with the Yumkasaurus, which is the really goofy green guy. And the only other playable character we currently have that we know of that's from the Scions is Moeka. So she was originally born into this tribe as well, which is why I think she has like a cute little connection with Kinich.
Her sister, afterwards of everything that happens 500 years ago, her sister Hein actually was really important in rebuilding that tribe and kind of getting it back on path too.
Yeah, because she goes on to be an architect, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she leaves behind notes and stuff with the other people for her sister. It's very sad. But that's a little bit about Kinich and what he knows going into this. So he has already received his ancient name, and he has already been told that he is one of these heroes, which means that he'll get some like cool glowing effects. But we first meet Kinich when we are arriving to the stadium with Kachina. So Kachina has decided that she's going to enroll in the pilgrimage. She wants to see if we can enroll in the pilgrimage. And the pilgrimage is a cool thing they do. Cool? I don't know. It's cool.
It's an annual competition that they do to get people to really just kind of work their asses off to get the sacred flame to get reburning.
Yes, because the sacred flame is like a power that helps to protect Natlan. And when the people of Natlan get really into it, the power of the fire is like, woohoo! And it gets really excited and it vibes.
It's kind of like the Oratrice.
Yeah.
Fontaine has their Oratrice where they're making all the Arkham and the
Indemnitium.
and over in Natlan. Yeah, Indemnitium, thank you. And then in Natlan, they're just making flames.
And in Natlan, like you go through a few levels to get in this trial. So it's like first is like a team level. So you go in with your team, and every team is led by an ancient name holder. If you make it through there, then you kind of get into one-on-one battles with one another as an ancient name holder. And then the final ancient name holders, there's 6 of them, are chosen to go fight in the abyss in this thing called the Night Warden Wars. And as long as one of you survives, you all can get brought back to life once this battle is over, because the abyss is slowly creeping up and trying to kill everyone in Natlan. So little baby Kachina has decided that hell yeah, she's going to enter the pilgrimage. And she's also decided that we should try to enter the pilgrimage too. So we arrive at Sports Illustrated Stadium and we run into Kinich. And so this is the first time we've met him, but we don't hear Kinich first. We actually hear Ajaw first. And Ajaw is scolding Kachina for being late and how she's wasted everyone's time, including her own, by being late. And she's like, guys, chill, Ajaw. Like, this is my friend. We're trying to register for this. And it was really cute because I felt like you immediately kind of got this like big brother, little sister vibe going on with Kinich and Kachina. And all of my headcanons for the Natlan characters were born within this moment.
Was that one of the moments too where Kinich kind of shows that when he's annoyed with how he could just flip him off? He just throws him off into like the abyss.
Yeah, he's like, go home. Go home, Ajaw.
I'm gonna slingshot you across Natlan. See you later.
Flick you with my finger. Send you flying.
Just like a gnat. And so in this moment, Mualani and Kachina decide, we're going to skip a lot of the lore because it doesn't relate to Kinich. But this is when Mualani and Kachina decide that they're going to team up and be a team together for the team part of the trials of the pilgrimage. And Kinich agrees to take over and lead Mualani's team. And we learn that Kinich actually has been a participant in many pilgrimages, and he's been to the Night Warden Wars multiple times. Once it didn't go too well, but we'll talk about that later. Kinich also in this moment does a lot of the world explaining. He kind of explains to us the different tribes, what the ancient names are. So whatever Kachina didn't explain from the get-go, Kinich is kind of filling in the blanks. During the initial first team round of the pilgrimage, Kinich ends up getting hurt, so he does not move on to the final round. But Kachina and Mualani do, and we get to see them fight each other, and then eventually Kachina is chosen to go into the abyss. At this point, we go and hang out with Mualani at the springs, in the People of the Springs area. There's a lot of drama, a lot of sadness. But after all that's done, we get to meet back up with Kinich, who says he's just coming back from a commission, which I'm like, you were hurt. Why are you on commission?
Bro, gotta make some money.
I mean, he makes a lot of money. It's just so stingy. And so we return because all the Night Warden Wars should be over, and we're all excited to welcome back our heroes from the abyss. And we sing a song together. It's a little cult-like, but Kachina does not come back.
Little baby Kachina. And we know that she was dead, so like we were really hoping on that resurrection.
And we're confused because other people came back. She's the only one who didn't. And we now are like right in the middle of Big Bro Kinich and Big Sis Mualani, who are like, where the fuck is baby Kachina? And there's a little bit of panic. And there's these guys who are like, yeah, fuck Kachina. And I'm like, you guys need to calm down. Just because you didn't get an ancient name doesn't mean you could be mean. And we end up following Mawika into her chambers, which is also a part of the stadium because Mawika doesn't even get her own place. And she tells us that she's really not sure what happened, but there is a way to go and find her ancient name, which is the first step to getting her back, and that we need a spirit speaker stone. And Kinich tells us that Waina, the chief of the Scions, has one. So a group of us head out to go talk to Waina and convince him to let us borrow this stone, which is actually Sitlali's. Meanwhile, Mawika, Iansan, and Kinich stay behind. Kinich and Iansan are talking to Mawika, who has decided that she is going to put the Gnosis into the flames to try to keep it running because they are struggle towning. Obviously, something is wrong with the abyss, and the pilgrimage did not power the sacred flame as much as it needed to be. Iansan does try to talk her out of it, but of course they get interrupted when Capitano shows up. One of my favorite moments for Kinich is when he pulls out his claymore And Moika's like, nah, give it to me. And he just like very reluctantly is like, here. And Moika uses Kenich's claymore to fight Capitano.
Like, where was her claymore, I wonder?
Like, yeah, what? It was so weird.
Like, you can't make your weapon appear out of light like everyone else.
Yeah, like really Archon. She's like, I just put my weapon into the sacred flame.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did she throw that shit in the flame too?
So there's the whole battle, and then she ends up sending Kinich to go talk to Sitlali to find out who the fuck this guy is. Like, is it Capitano? Is there something going on with our people? We don't know. So he goes to figure that out, and he comes back and does report back a little bit about Auroran and everything there. And then Kinich actually goes with us to get Kachina out of the Night Kingdom. The next time that we see Kinich is when we are looking to get Sitlali's help. So we want to get her help into looking a little bit more into everything that's going on with us needing an ancient name to possibly go into the abyss. And Jilonin writes us a very nice letter saying like, hey, like the Archon needs us, but she's still like kind of like, I don't know, Sitlali's really busy. And Paimon's like, yeah, and we really can't show up because if we just show up, she's gonna be like, you broke my spirit speaker stone. So Jilonin suggests that we send Kinich with the letter because he knows her, he's worked for her before, and he's apparently a great negotiator, a good smooth talker. So they send Kinich. Later on, we learn more about what's going on with Auroran and Capitano, thanks to Aoife and Sitlali. Even though we don't meet Aoife, Aoife unintentionally was involved in getting us some of Auroran's memories, and we're able to learn about that. And we learned through this as well that Capitano and Auroran are looking for a device from the Dragon Age. We're not like 100% sure what this device is for, and Moika decides that she needs to go fight Capitano head on, and Ian-san is like, no. And Kinich is like, you literally just sacrificed your powers. You don't have the ability to do that. Instead, let me and Ajaw do all the fighting. And then you can sneak in the back with everyone else. And that is what they end up doing. I remember being so scared doing this part in the Archon Quest that I was somehow going to get Kinich and Ajaw killed. I didn't. They succeeded. They lived.
That'd be interesting because Kinich is one of the few playable characters that they could kill and still have him playable and just change his whole personality to Ajaw.
Yeah, well, yeah, because Ajaw is going to take over his body, yada yada. So after we succeed in this, the next time we see Kinich is during the big bad deadly battle. We don't really see a lot of him though. He's off acting as like a messenger, and he's fighting along the way, and he's giving messages about where the abyss is and where the lines are.
He's being the glue or the goop.
And then the heroes all come together, Kinich included, to Power Ranger up their powers. More like, I guess, Sailor Moon. Like, they're all Sailor Scouts now. And this is when Tiff gets her favorite moment with Ajaw.
At this point, we're like going, everybody's on like those like crazy little like wind rifts and all that stuff that kind of happens in here. And they have like walkie-talkies that are like kind of like they can see each other. It's all kind of craziness going on. But at this point is when there were some things not being voiced anymore in the game because of the voice actor strike that was going on. So there's a point when Ahaw's just like talking shit like he normally is, and like Paimon has no time for it, and she just goes, Kinich, can you shut him up? But there's no voice. So it's like, bam, there you go. He's quiet. She got her wish.
I think in the moment you said that Kinich, they like muted him on Zoom, even though he was already muted.
Yeah, they muted him on Zoom because that's what it was. It was a giant Zoom call.
Oh yeah, because Moika was like connecting all of them, right?
Yeah. And it was like they would pop up, it was so wild. Like there was so much going on already that it was kind of like, I think everybody at that point is like, all right, we're getting there, we're finishing this out, like let's go. But it's like if you really just chunk it out to that one spot of what's going on, it's like, what the fuck? What kind of craziness teleporting type of Zoom call is this?
So after Tiff's favorite Ajaw Zoom moment, the next time we really get to see Kinich, everything ends, the battle ends, we succeed, or I guess some iteration of success happens. And much later, like days later, we gather with everyone, including Kinich and our other friends, because we need help making our ancient name. And so they actually take this like little scroll thing and they go and they talk about us, which is like kind of rude. It's like they have a burn book for us, but it's all positive things because they're trying to put our memories into the Night Kingdom and into the ley lines of Natlan. It's like a whole thing, the Wayobs, blah, blah, blah. We actually get to hear that message later on when we get to go fight and do our final battle. But before we do the final battle, we get invited to the People of the Springs, where their chief Amina is throwing a celebration before the final battle. Mawika even goes, and we get to see some really cute Kinich and Ajaw moments here, where Kinich is trying to help, and Ajaw like ruins an ice bucket.
The infamous ice bucket. He put his little booty in an ice bucket, and no one's over it.
Now Mualani was like, "Get rid of your boy, Kinich."
Yeah.
And then Mawika was like, "I'll handle him." And yeah, and then we go and we fight the Abyss, and we get to hear what Kinich said about us, which of course was lovely things. I'm pretty sure he was the one who was most embarrassed that we heard them. And that's basically his involvement in the Archon. It's not a lot.
Yeah.
It's all the glue. It's the important parts. We needed him to smooth things over with Solali for breaking the damn stone, which really Vishama broke the stone. It really wasn't us.
But we take blame for the NPCs.
Yes. But, he was important, but not vocal.
He's like kind of plays the role of trusty guard / messenger. You know what I mean? Like he's like the fighter / messenger. Like if we need to make sure that this gets where it needs to go, he's your person to get it done. So he's not involved in any of the real drama. He's just like getting shit done. That's what he does. He's like, what needs to be done? I got it.
Yeah, which is so nice. Like they have this very reliable, stable character.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk a little bit about his childhood, which is all the things that he went through before 7. It's insane. But knowing everything that he's been through before he was even 7, it is so... It's like almost relieving to see a character still be so calm, cool, and collected. I don't know if that's the repression or if he's worked through it, but he has a lot going on.
Oh, yeah. His childhood was rough indeed.
And now we learn all of this, like we said before, isn't in like any visible quest that we do for him. It's all within his buttoned up lore, right?
Not as of while we're recording this.
Which will be kind of interesting, at least if they bring it to light and be like, hey, all those things you didn't read? They're very important. This is the one thing that's really important that we didn't lock behind an event, but you still didn't go read it. Where like Albedo, they're like, forget it.
But you can always go to his character stories and read it. But yeah, his childhood was rough. His father was a gambling addict. And whenever he would win at gambling, he was all like, yay, I brought you this. I brought you this home. Here's some flowers. Here's anything you want. And then when he would lose the money, he would get wasted and then come home and be abusive. And his mother at the time was an expert farmer, and she would plant crops in their backyard, which was significant a little bit later for Kinich. But after his father would come home after losing money and be really drunk, a fight would inevitably break out between him and Kenich's mother. And the father, of course, always won because he was physically stronger than her. And at first, when they sort of lived closer to their tribe, the neighbors were kind of aware of what was going on, and it would kind of dampen the explosions. But eventually his gambling caught up with them to the point where they lost their house and they had to move to a more remote area away from the tribe. So they sort of set up a new living arrangement at the foot of a mountain instead of with the other tribe members. And this sort of had a good side to it, but also a very bad side. The good side was that they were on a larger plot of land, so that enabled Kinich to learn a lot about how to plant. It says he learned how to plant green fruit, twist castor oil plants into rope, mix tapioca flour to make thick noodles, and learn the art of trap making to hunt the forest boars. So he was able to sort of use the excess land that they had to learn ways to survive, which is really beneficial for him. And then, the flip side of this is that it also meant they'd have no more neighbor interactions. And so his father became emboldened during, his drunken explosions to beat him and his mother more regularly.
Oh, that's nice. Good thing they had all that secluded land.
I know. I just feel like they're like living in a tent and all this drama is happening in a tent.
Oh no, see, I bet the mom built their house.
Oh my God, you're probably right.
Because she did everything, she just did everything while he was off like losing their money and abusing them. His mother eventually had enough of it, and she made the awful decision to sneak out of the house one night and never come back. And she left Kinich there to save herself.
Mm-mm.
And doesn't it say that like Kinich doesn't even remember if she said goodbye? He's like, I don't even remember if she actually like came in and said goodbye to me.
Right.
That's so sad. He was like, what, 5? Like 6 at this point? I don't know.
It's really sad because I think it says that, she must have thought that taking Kinich with her would have made the father chase them to the ends of the earth, and she would never be free from him if she took Kinich. So that's sort of the reason that she left him there, which you can kind of understand, but at the same time, you can't understand it because she abandoned him. And now Kinich is left there without her protection. And so Kinich takes on her role of doing the housework, doing the farming, doing the hunting, and taking the beatings. And so this goes on until Kinich turns 7. So this is all before he's 7 years old that this happens. He turns 7 and he asks his father about his mother's whereabouts. Like, hey, have you heard from mom lately? That woman that you ran off. And his father, of course, goes into a flying rage and chases him outside and is running after him. And he loses his footing near a cliff and he falls to his death. Ding dong, the witch is dead.
Insanity.
Yeah.
So great news, but you're 7 years
still
old.
Left as a 7-year-old.
And you don't have a mom, and your dad's dead, and you're living alone at the foot of a mountain.
But at least you can make tapioca noodles.
You can farm, you can hunt. I mean, so this is what I mean, like living on this larger plot of land, like allowing him to learn those things is what really saves his life, because he actually becomes self-sufficient at the age of 7, because he can do all these things to feed himself.
He has this line, and it's for my 911 fans out there, Eddie Diaz level of repression here, where it says, only by squeezing his eyes shut, scrunching his nose, and breathing deeply, warping and twisting his face in the process, did he manage to hold in the tears when his father died. So he immediately was like, repress, push it down, conceal, don't feel, don't let them know.
Mm-hmm.
No. Then he did what I also consider Eddie Diaz level shit, of where he got a grappling hook that he had never used before, swung it down, and used it to pull his dead father's body up. Which, first off, Eddie did that to Buck when he got hit by lightning. It was, that's where I get the comparison from that. But also, you're 7 years old, and you can lift your dead father with the grappling hook? And what did he do with the body?
He ate it.
Like, where did it go?
He probably used it as fertilizer.
I was just throwing in a little bit of, cannibalism in there.
And despite all of this emotion and all of this sadness, he still considers that on his 7th birthday, he got his freedom. Like, that was at 7, he gained freedom. And I just think that's so sad. He
gained freedom, but he has to do it alone, just like his mother.
Yeah.
If I ever see that bitch, it's gonna be hands thrown on sight. I'm gonna fight her so hard.
Okay.
I feel like it's, like Shenhe had to go sit in a cave and wait for some monster to try and kill her. This one, what the hell is going on with these kids?
I know. Yeah, she might be the only person who had it worse than Kinich.
Yeah.
But anyway, continue about his beautiful farming life, living on the land.
Oh, yeah. So he's by himself. He's very lonely, but he's making it work. He does his farming, his hunting, his making ropes and collecting seeds and everything. So every so often he would go make the trek over to the tribal market in order to trade. And this catches the attention of the tribal elders who want to help him, but Kinich always refused because he's very untrusting of free help.
Everything has a price.
I mean, you blame him?
Of course, yeah. I mean, just the fact that, his father was probably constantly in debt. I mean, when his father would lose money, he would ask for money from other people. So I'm sure like the idea of anyone giving you something for free is just terrifying to him because he knows that it's going to end up coming back at you.
How did the dad repay them? They didn't repay them with him, did they?
I don't think he did, and that's how they lost their house.
Right.
I went really dark there for a moment. I got really upset.
Oh, he was giving BJ's under the bridge.
No, he is 7.
Only on White Day.
No, I meant his dad.
All I can Tiff saying last week that the BJ's and the steak.
Steak and a BJ.
That's all I
Steak
can
and a
think about anymore. It's on my mind 24/7.
Oh my God, that probably is how he afforded his gambling habit. He would take the boar that his son killed and make a steak.
Take some tapioca
Take it down
noodles.
to the overpass by the tree, by the tribal market.
Oh my God. But Brandon, you have to get to the part where Kinich Diaz meets his Bobby Nash.
Oh yeah. So the elders at the tribal market, they're like, this poor kid is like coming around here trying to trade, and his parents don't seem to be around. And we tried to help him and he's saying no. But eventually the tribal children's teacher, Elder Leik, Leik, not sure how to say it.
I like Leik.
Leik is fun. So Elder Leik intervenes, and Elder Leik had actually interacted with his parents before they pieced out. So he kind of knew the situation, and he knows how standoffish Kinich is. So he tries to sort of cut him a deal to make him feel more comfortable with accepting help from them. And he offers him admission to the Learning Lodge, which is their fancy way of saying school.
And it's like a preschool, right? It's only for 7 to 8-year-olds.
Well, actually, I don't know. He just says that anyone, he's 7 to 8 years old, and anyone that age should be in school already. So he's kind of like, you need to be in school. But I'm assuming it goes longer than that.
And Kinich is like, I need to be supporting myself. I don't have time for school.
Well, yeah, he tells him like, you can come to school, and then in exchange, because I know you don't like things, free handouts. In exchange, you can run some errands for me. Yeah, and then Kinich is like, even though the school is free, but Kinich refuses because he's like, first of all, he doesn't value education. He values survival, just like anyone would that's in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, why would I spend my time in school when I could be hunting boar to trade? But Leik keeps on him and eventually figures out a way to convince him to try it and to come to school, like just on the occasions when he comes in to the tribe to trade at the market. Those are like the days. And then he gets bullied by the damn kids.
Which, like, I gotta tell you, like, they kick a kid while he's fucking down.
Yeah, these little monsters.
Bobby Nash finally convinces him to, like, do good. He's got a mentor. And on the first day of school, they're like, why don't you wear shoes?
Yeah, because she's swinging through the trees like a mud monkey.
Where have you seen a monkey, bitch? What? Like, I've never seen a monkey in this game. I've been to every nation except for Shiznaya. I've never seen a monkey. What are you reading? Where are you? I was so mad.
Yeah, where are the monkeys? Just like the horses and the cows.
Yeah. There's no cows. We have milk that has a cow on it, but we have
a
no
cow
cows.
person, Baressa, but
we have a cavalry captain, but I've never seen a fucking horse.
Anyway, so the children are bullying him, calling him Mud Monkey. And during the first day of class, while Leik is teaching, about the virtue of past heroes and their self-sacrifice, Kinich kind of finds the idea silly of like the idea of like self-sacrifice as nobility. He finds it silly, and he thinks that the things that help you survive are the most noble things. And after learning that heroes also receive a lot of mora via their fame, he's like, oh, I should do that, not because I want to be noble and have this virtue of heroism, but because I could get rich. And if there's one thing that everyone needs to know about Kinich, is that he wants to get paid.
Which probably comes from trauma from his dad and his lack of money skills.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. He's been traumatized by not having money.
100%.
Yeah, a lot of Kinich you learn even at 7, like his whole life's goal is to just not be his dad.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a common thing with a lot of people who had parents with some sort of an addiction too. You see a lot of people who go complete opposite as a self-preservation, but also because they're like, you're shitty. I don't want to be like that. Let me do the opposite because obviously I don't want to end up like you.
Right.
Yeah, I was gonna say, as a parent of addiction, this was the part that really, like, the parent, wait.
No, you're not the parent of addiction.
As a parent of addiction.
Like, when'd you get that kid? When'd you get the addiction?
Well, I am parental. I am taking care of the addiction. That is my kid. No, as a child of addiction, of an addict as well. Like, that's why Kenichi's story, I feel, connects so much to me, because I actually was talking to you about Tiff recently. Like, I feel like my whole life, my goal has been to not be my mother. I'm like, I will do better. I will not dye my hair red, and I will do better. So I get it.
It's the dyeing the hair that you're like, I can't do that.
I can't become a redhead. I'll be too similar. But so the bullying is going on, right? And he kind of makes this note about how he's gonna be the hero, and then don't they like push him out the door?
Yeah, they're like, okay, mud monkey, and they all like literally push him out the door, which makes me so mad at Leik. I mean, Leik tries to stop them, but like, don't you hate it when like a teacher is like, well, I tried to stop the kids, but they just did it anyway. And it's like, no, like, kick all those kids out of your classroom, go tell their parents what they did, throw them off of the canopy. Like, just don't let them do that. Like, don't let them get away with it. But anyway, they did that. But the lore almost makes it sound like Kinich never came back, but he did keep coming back because he ended up graduating from the Learning Lodge eventually.
From the Reading Rainbow.
Yeah, butterfly in the sky.
The sky.
But it's like a howl with butterfly wings.
Twice as high.
But yeah, Kinich, after graduating, he actually wants very much to learn how to improve his strength because he is now on this mission to become a hero so he can get rich. So he asks Leik, he says, Bobby, will you be my teacher? And can I live with you? And Leik says yes. So he agrees to take him in as a little mentee / foster son. And I think Leik is sort of agreeing to it with the hopes of instilling in Kinich the merits of being a hero, just to be a hero, not to just, go after Mora. Kinich is kind of like, no, I'm after the Mora and I can learn from you. So let's do this.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Let's keep it going.
So he lives with Leik for many years and does learn a lot from him, including like all about Natlan's past, all the heroes, all the tribes. He even like learns about like other characters like from the tribes, like people that can help like with certain things. So he's learning a lot that he was not getting, isolated from the age of 7. Leik couldn't really teach him martial arts. So what Kinich would do is any of his off days, he would practice martial arts, but he would do that by incorporating the behaviors of animals in the wild. So that's where he gets his fighting style.
I kind of imagine Mr. Leik as Henry Henderson from Spy X Family. If you've ever seen the memes of this guy who's just going, excellence, excellent. Like, that's how I imagine this guy. And so I've always just imagined like a very old guy that can't do
Interesting. Okay.
anything physical.
With a long mustache.
Yeah, he's got to have the long sash and the monocle.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, we don't get to see Leik, but hopefully soon, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Leik eventually gets Kinich more involved in tribal work. So he starts him out as a courier, and Kinich is able to do that so much easier than everyone else. Like he basically could get things delivered in half the time of anyone else. Like, watch out, Kirara, because he's coming for your job. This led to people in the tribe coming to him for other paid favors, including killing powerful Saurians. And so that's how he becomes sort of this renowned Saurian hunter. And he, of course, charges everyone for any work that he does for them. So they're like, I need this done. He's like, okay, well, I think that's worth about this much. And if they try to haggle with him, he's like, nope, it's this much. and I'll walk away if you don't pay it. And then he kind of doesn't discriminate in the type of work that he'll take. If someone comes to him with something and they request something that involves a falsehood or, some type of shady dealings or concealment, then Kinich would quote unquote weigh it against his heart and increase the price as he deemed fit. And that really bothered some of the tribe, including this guy who just seems like kind of a jerk, Elder Trinidad. And Trinidad he starts to go to talk to Kinich about it, but Leik stops him and, he reminds Trinidad that Kinich, he's doing these things that you wouldn't consider heroic, but Kinich has never been a scion of the Canopy. He is a scion of the mountains.
Which was an interesting thing to say, I felt.
Yeah, I like that. I feel like it sort of displays Leik knowing that what Kinich went through at such a young age and being like isolated out there and everything that happened at the foot of that mountain, that's going to sort of stay with him throughout his life. And that everyone trying to make Kinich fit in with the Scions of the Canopy is never going to fully work because a part of him will never be that.
Right. And it also is that reminder too of like, he's going to be everything that was the opposite of growing up. Everything he saw, he's going to be opposite of. So Scions of Canopy, opposite, mountains.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to ever fit in necessarily.
Right.
But one other thing that he has with Elder Leik that I think is really like kind of funny and sweet is that Kinich has a favorite book, The Hill of Silent Crickets.
Oh, yeah.
And it's his favorite book because his mom wrote it. And it is an unfinished manuscript, and it should remain that way. She doesn't deserve to have a published book.
Wow.
And Kinich is like all excited to share this book with Elder Leik, and he hates it. And can you just imagine that little like bonding moment of like Kinich like his eye twitching, like you don't like this? What do you mean you don't like the book?
What do you mean it was poorly written?
Yeah, what do you mean? It doesn't have an ending? So what?
Yeah.
Not all books have endings, Leik. And he's like, that's kind of the point of a book. I really like this like mentorship relationship, and it makes me sad because I've never been able to find Elder Leik or this young place for the children.
Yeah, the Learning Lodge.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to know where the Learning Lodge is. I want to go hang out over there. I want to go learn something.
You want to go to grade school to...
I want to learn about the Yumkasaurus.
We do at one point get to meet Elder Trinidad.
Yes.
So we assume that he knows Leik, but we have no idea.
Trinidad is important into the Scions, the current
story quest. Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't we talk a little bit about like what's important for Kinich in that story quest?
Yeah, so that story quest, like I said, it goes into almost like part 3 is considered Kinich's story quest, but there's 3 parts to it because it's the reputation, like the new way that you do the tribal reputation stuff in
the
Natlan.
Tribal Chronicles.
Thank you. Tribal Chronicles. So the story kind of starts out with these 2 little kids who are just kind of like almost annoyed, I guess, as we walk up. It's kind of funny because they're just like, they're kind of bickering and stuff over this Uncle Sanka, and that, he was supposed to help them with the baby Saurians and they didn't. And we're like, what are you guys talking about? This is Huni and Toba are their names. And they're talking about basically how Huni's dad, Saurian, Nana, was attacked. And at this point, we think it just was injured, but I think actually she didn't make it. And the babies ran away and they need to go find the babies. So we're like, don't worry, we'll go help you find the babies. And as that goes on, and this Huni's dad is Trinidad, as we find out later on. But as we kind of like go trying to find these like little babies and whatnot, we run into a Ajaw who talks about like some kind of like, there's some like abyssal currents kind of going on, and like he's almost like being sus, like we're like the reason why things are about like a little like weird and shit kind of lurking in a suspicious outlander and stuff. Like he almost makes it sound like we're doing something wrong here. So we're like, fuck you, we're gonna go find these babies.
Yeah, and doesn't a house say like there's some kind of abyssal event and it contaminated the Saurian mother who attacked the tribe and her babies before jumping off a cliff and killing herself?
What? Shut up.
Well, yeah, because he calls it a lizard.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. I first thought like he was literally talking about like lizards.
The Illuminati.
No, like just the little tiny little lizards that are running around. I was like,
Nana,
what?
yeah, he's like, Saurian Nana got contaminated by the abyss, went crazy, tried to kill everyone, and then jumped off of a cliff and killed herself. And then he's like, and I still sense abyssal energy in the area, so look out for suspicious people.
And he says like it must like that it's very like nearby and stuff. Like I think he even refers to an evil sorcerer at some point too.
So dramatic.
Yeah. How, he does. So like we go, we find the babies and stuff for Huni and Toba, and we kind of go back to them, and Toba's like shit talking Uncle Glasses, who is this Uncle Sanka, which now they refer to him as Uncle Glasses. It's ridiculous. Like it's just so funny. Like he's mad because he's like, I told you he wasn't gonna help us and all this stuff, and he was just lying to us. And Huni's just like, whatever, the babies are fine. Like, move on, kid.
The type of kid I don't want to ever deal with.
And then we get to see this Uncle Glasses because we're like, can you tell us a little bit more about what's going on here? Some people may have looked at Uncle Glasses and been like, you look familiar. I think I know you. No, you didn't. Oh.
I had no idea. I was so pleasantly surprised. I was like, yes, my man.
Mm-hmm.
Not Albedo.
So we're like, the Uncle Glasses, basically, he's talking to us and saying like, well, just, tell me about these different legends. And he specifically wants to know about the Turnfire and about the ancient name Malipo and, what Kinich has to do with that. Like, he's just kind of like everything that he's very endearing, and, he's talking to these kids and just leading them on, basically. Like, you could see why, like, they don't think anything of it. So, and he's just like, oh, well, let me guess, like, the ancient name is always going to be the person who like jumps out and saves the day. Because they go on to say like, like Malipo, and then with the Turnfire, just go back a little bit on it. He, like we said early on, like Ochkan used that to oppress people. So like somebody had to fight against it because, it kind of sucked. And it was Yupanqui. And if you would listen to our unfinished Reverie artifact set from last season, you would remember Yupanqui.
Episode 92.
So basically, back in the day, Yupanqui was just like, this shit's kind of like really kind of shitty. What's kind of going on here? And there's more to the story. I'm not going to go all that way into it, but he was friends with Ochkan and Jablanque and all the other kind of like guys back then. And he kind of gets to change a little bit of stuff, but he gets eaten up by the Turnfire. But that's the creepiest part, is because like he's going to leave. Like he helps free the people because like he stole the Turnfire and threw it at the army, and they all turned to ash, and then like all the people were free, and it was like, yay. And then Yupanqui gets Turnfired himself, and he swears that he hears Ochkan behind him, and he turns around and poof, instant death. Crispy little Yupanqui.
Yay toast.
Here came some burnt toast.
Again, if you can find me a bottle of Turnfire, I'll be waiting.
I'm going to call you Arlecchino.
Yeah, why are you trying to
Don't
emulate
you
yourself?
dare.
It's basically...
I don't know, it sounds like a
There's
good
so
time.
many other people that deserve it.
I appreciate that, Brandon. Like Arlecchino.
Sure, video game people, not real ones.
Yeah. Not real people.
I don't feel like we could say any real names without getting on a list.
So basically, this fire, though, that consumed Yupanqui actually burned for 100 days. And it burned a hole through the ley lines and dropped down into the Night Kingdom, where it's actually still burning to this day. The kids explain that this light is actually what helps you find the path to your next life. In order for the dead to be reborn, they have to accept the flames. That's some scary ass shit.
I'm never accepting the flames.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you give me the bottle.
Did you stop with the bottle?
No.
So, Uncle Glasses at this point is like, well, who's Malipo now, though? And they're like, oh, it's Kinich. Of course, everybody knows that. And he's like, oh, okay.
But wait, who the fuck are you, Uncle Glasses, that you don't know that?
Yeah. Well, he like says at one point too, like, well, because like he then's like wants to ask, like they're like, okay, now go help find the babies, and he's just like, no, let me ask you more questions about Kinich, and they get mad and they're like, the Turnfire is gonna get you, and he laughs at them, and he's just like, I'm not from Natlan, the Turnfire is not gonna get me, you little weirdos, which is so rude. Like he totally taunts them, but then he all of a sudden just goes, wait, is that? And Paimon and Traveler are walking down the road, and he's like, you know what? My two friends are on their way over here. They're going to help you with the babies. You just tell them that, just work them like dogs. Don't go easy on them. Just keep telling them they got to help you find the babies. I've already planned this out. And then he's like, I got to go.
Gotta go.
And we're like,
Bye.
what?
Yeah, see you later. So, and then like before like he leaves too, like they're like, what is even your name? And he says, my name's Sanka. And his whole thing is because they're near the mountains. And I'm like thinking Sanka, like Sanka or Sanka, like the instant coffee. This whole time, I'm just imagining him as a nice, refreshing cup of instant coffee from the 80s.
Is that refreshing?
No, it's not. It's instant coffee.
I don't drink coffees, but I assumed it was bad. So I was like, wait, am I wrong?
I mean, if you need coffee, it's going to work for you, but it's not good.
Okay.
But apparently it actually, Sanka means mountain people in a whole bunch of Aztec type languages, and actually not just them. So there's a reason why he comes up with it, because they're hanging out underneath the mountains. And it's like, okay. And he's got glasses on. Obviously, that's why he is called Uncle Glasses.
Imagine if I was like Aunt Glasses, and like, go to hell. Like, stop.
So that's kind of like, that's like the first part of it. Now it goes into, okay, like we head over to the Scions, the Canopy. We see Huni talking to her dad, which is Trinidad, and he's like scolding her, like, wait, you got help from strangers? And they're like, she's like, they were nice. And he's like, oh, I'm sure. Did they have kind stranger written on their foreheads? And she goes, yeah. Like a little fucking snot-nosed kid. It was so great. But then, of course, we walk over and he realizes who we are. And he's like, oh, shit, they actually are kind strangers.
He's like, oh, thank God. We got lucky for once.
Because he's like, what am I going to do if I lose you? Because now he's already lost his Saurian. There's no mention of a mom here, so
it doesn't matter. All that mattered was the story.
Apparently,
he's
that
like,
was the whole thing was like,
I lost my first love.
Yeah. What am I gonna do if I lose you? Like I lost my Saurian.
Thanks, Dad.
I mean, the Saurian's name was Nana, so
Nana.
It tells you a lot about their family dynamic.
Are you sure it wasn't Cyrus?
Nana and Cyrus, they should get together.
But one's dead.
That's true.
The ghost of Nana.
Or is she?
She's really just ran away with Cyrus.
She's like, I got a date. Tired of you, Elder Trinidad. I gotta go. So Trinidad goes on to tell us about the Turnfire Night and how this is a traditional ceremony that they used to remember their ancestor, Burkina, who was the previous Malipo, and his companion, Kangamato, the Mountain King, who was this really powerful Yumkasor warrior. Then they fought the Abyss together. So he's like telling us this whole thing and kind of explaining a little bit more, like, they were victorious in all of their fights and stuff. Like they were a great team, but in the end, Burkina died and the Abyss contaminated the Mountain King, and he's still alive today, even though typically Yumkasor should only be alive for 100 years or a little less than 100 years. They think because he has all this abyssal power and elements kind of like seeped into him that he's living in an unnaturally long life.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds torturous.
And we're like, he's still alive somewhere? And they're like, he's like, yeah. He's like, well, when he gets disturbed a little bit too much, or there's too much buildup of this abyssal power, he flies into a blind rage and attacks anything that'll move.
Which is like so funny because at this point, like I had already fought this guy so many times.
Yeah. And he's so cute.
I was like, I'm getting lore on him now? Damn, I already killed him like 8 times.
Yeah. And if he's a roly-poly, lappy little guy. Well, he's not little. He's huge. He's a huge little fat guy. I love him. And I was so like distraught by the fact that he was like in pain. And I was like, oh, we're going to fight this guy. And he's like, trying not to get disturbed. So he doesn't fly off the handle and just start killing people and stuff. And contaminating other Yonkosauruses, which, what were you doing with Nana? It doesn't really ever say.
Oh, because he is the reason that Nana got infected by the Abyss, right? Because he attacked her.
Yes. He attacked her, so she got infected with the Abyss, and then she went crazy and yeeted herself off the mountain.
Woo!
What an inspiration.
Yes.
It's such an inspirational story.
Yeah.
If you don't turn into toast, you just
jump
eat yourself off the cliff.
Yeah.
So I'm taking a lot of notes tonight, guys. How to become parent of
Amanda's doing great, y'all.
Yeah. And this is before doing the Albedo quests. Man. So we're gonna have to like have a watch on you.
It'll be great. I'll bring snacks.
Trinidad goes on though to continue to say like, these incidents are on the rise, and like the Mountain King is getting disturbed a little easier, where like they used to do this annually. They do it like every 5 months now. And like there's already like some signs that he's becoming unstable again. And like there was a point where he reawoke really recently. And they did like a little makeshift ceremony to kind of like get him to be okay. But that's when Nana got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like he's a little like, we're really touchy about this. So, of course, because anybody who wants it, who ever talks to us in this game is like, so you should help me with this.
I'm like, why?
We're like, don't you have an ancient name guy? Like, shouldn't this be Kinich? Like, why are you asking
They're
us?
like, because he wants to get paid, and we're trying to get this stuff for free, okay?
We can't afford that.
Which is basically it. Because he's like, well, we asked Kinich, and he was just like, well, I only do this once a year. So if we're going to do it more often and it needs to be this extravagant thing, you're going to have to pay me more. And at this point, I'm like, oh, fucking Kinich. Like, fuck all y'all. I hope more of your nanas die.
Oh my God, Tim.
Well, he was like, I need the money. I'm not going to help you. You are my people, but whatever. You'll be fine.
Oh my God.
It turns out there's a reason. But he says, like, basically, like, we're heroes in Natlan. We should be able to do this. And, Kinich was never able to kind of do it all the way anyway. He only did it a little bit. And now he wants all this extra money. So he's like, you really should be the ones who are going to do it. And we're like, okay, well, we got to help this poor Mountain King. And we don't want people to die. So, okay. But are you sure it's going to be okay with Kinich that we're like taking his gig? And he's like, yeah, no, it's okay.
We show up. Kinich is like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
How much did they pay you?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I did it for free. He's like,
yeah. Oh, wait, I was going to get money. This didn't go through Catherine.
Yeah. Catherine's the only one who appreciates me.
Mm-hmm. But of course, at this point, the story like cuts over, and we're in a cave with How, Kinich, and Sanka. It's hysterical because Sanka is going on and on about the extreme sports and how they're so much fun in Natlan, and about going bungee jumping and how it's like all this great, and how it's just like, what the fuck are you talking about going bungee jumping?
I was like, we have shit to do. Who are you?
Yeah, he's just like, what's going on? And like throughout all of this too, like Sanka just goes, aren't you actually even wondering like why I'm here talking to you? I'm like, don't you really even care? And again, because he's like taunty and stuff, so you're kind of like, what? And he says about like, he's kind of representing or bringing the Abyss. So we know that he's part of what they were looking for early on. But we're still not sure what's going on with Sanka there. But like it brings us back over so we can like finish up the second part of the story basically. And Traveler does the little tests and we're approved to be the flame bearer for the ceremony. And Trinidad was just like, okay, I got to go tell the other people because they still want Kinich. But, telling them we shouldn't rely and wait on the last minute because he's probably just going to make us pay him more.
As he should.
So it's like, I'll just go tell them. With that, like, like the next day or so, we're in Scions of the Canopy again, and we run into Kinich. And of course, like, we're still a little bit like, hey, are you okay with us taking your little job?
He's like, thank God.
He's like, I'm not interested in glory, just Mora, so it's fine. However,
yeah, literally.
He's like, Trinidad's not telling you this whole story. Like, you're not hearing the whole thing. So he continues basically saying that Trinidad wants the Mountain King to be like, to go to the Night Kingdom. And this is the whole part where he was just like, he wants you to kill him. And Paimon's like, damn, you got to be so blunt about it. And he's just like, well, he's really hoping that after in the end, things will just happen and you'll just kill him dead. Just cracks me up. Just kill him dead. Don't kill him half dead. I've been doing that in the past.
I was thinking of just doing 3/4 personally.
So Kinich is like, well, I'll make a deal with you. Don't tell Trinidad that that like he's trying to get you to kill our legend of like this Yumkasaurus is like on all the banners. He's the important part of this entire thing. Stories get told to the children, and this dude is just like, let's just stop it. Just kill him and be done with it. He's just like, I'll give you something that you'll want. Like, trust me. So we're like, all right, whatever, sounds good. So we go kind of like over to Trinidad, and we're like kind of like waiting for him to tell us his side of the story. Because now we know that Kinich is like, we only half kill him so this way he goes back to sleep, because we don't want him to die. We just don't want him to be crazy. So over at Trinidad's place, he's just like, okay, I told everybody you're going to be our new person, but like, look, I have to tell you about the second part, which is really important.
Like,
yeah, it's like, it's the purification process. He's like, so you're going to use the sacred flame and you're going to burn away the abyssal energy. And he's like, look, here's the most important part though. You need to burn away as much as possible. It's like in the past, the flame bearer, they weren't able to do it all the way. Like they were never able to do the whole thing, but you're so special. I know that you could do it. Which is like, bitch, we know what you're up to. Trying to convince us.
People have too much faith in me.
Mm-hmm. We're like, okay, he wants us to kill the Mountain King. We go back up with like Kinich and we meet Wayna and stuff. And Wayna's like, look, please don't kill our wonderful Mountain King. Like, we don't want him dead. We want him asleep.
And we're like, what?
So Kinich is like, I have a plan. And I think what I'm gonna do is that there's these things called beastly rifts. He's like, I came across it in a cave. My plan is that I'm gonna take the Mountain King and put him in the cave. And that's where, like, because there's already this like abyssal energy, it'll just kind of keep him contained in here and he'll be fine. Like he'll just be like, this is where he lives now. He won't keep waking up and trying to kill everybody. It's kind of like, if you think back to like what they did to Ajaw, they're like, dude, you're getting a little bit like pissy here. We're gonna stick you in some rocks.
Yeah.
Just go live over there.
Am I understanding correctly that he wants to put Kangamato in a cleared out Rift Town portal?
Basically in a cave, yeah. Because he found them all in a cave. And like they just keep coming out. We're even like, but how are you gonna do this? Like, we usually see the Rift Hounds come out of the beastly rifts when they want to kill us. We've never tried to go into one. Like, how are you figuring this out? And he's like, that's my problem to figure out. You don't worry about it. And it turns out, because he's got a little guy on the inside who's helping him out with his plan. Uncle Glasses.
Who is secretly
the thing calling himself Sanka, which should be the first clue, because then the next time we see him, we get to see in all his glory Enjo, our friend,
Lord and Savior.
He is the worst and the best of the abyssal Baptist guys.
Better than all the rest.
Anybody needs a reminder of Enjo, back in Kanomiya, he was looking for a book. And we had the book, and he was telling us his whole plan. And his whole thing was like, oh, well, I made this whole deal with all the people. And we said, like, if you give it to us, we'll just let you free. And they're like, so you were just going to let them free? They're like, oh, no. What would it look like if I was going to put all the power of the abyss on you and you just walked out fine? He's like, I was lying to him. Like, come on now.
I absolutely betrayed them.
I totally betrayed him. Yeah, like, he's so, like, he's truth.
Just the straight up facts. That's it.
He was telling us the whole fucking truth the whole time. He's like, yeah, you got to do what you got to do.
So he's revealed to be the one that was helping Kinich with this beastly rift plan, right?
Yeah, he had like a little device almost. It like reminded me of in Ghostbusters when they put the little thing down and all the ghosts go in it. It was kind of like that. That's kind of when we find out like this is exactly what's going to happen when the whole fight kind of happens during the ceremony and whatnot. There's a part there too where we're like, well, you could talk. This is your part. Here you go. Here's Sanka. Have at it. Like, you want to find out some stuff? Here you go. You want to learn about the Abyss? What better person to get the information from than this guy? But during this whole fight too, like Kinich's whole thing is just like, keep the people away from me. Everybody still wants me to do your job. I don't want to do it. I just got to figure out how to get this little pudgy guy over here. You just take care of that part. That's kind of what happens. Kinich is able to get him over into the cave. This is where he's going to live. And that's where we fight him now, too. And that's actually at the point, too, where we're done, like, fighting all these rift hounds and all this stuff. Like, Enju's, like, in his full glory. Does Trinidad actually get, like, a comeuppance with it? Because he's, like, mad.
Yeah, so I think what happens is, like, so first of all, Enjo and Kinich make this deal, but I was a little confused on, like, what was in it for Enjo? Like, because didn't he just tell them he just wanted to be left alone with his historical research in exchange for giving them the device that creates the Rifthound portal for them?
Yeah.
That was just funny to me. It's like, just leave me alone and I'll help you. But I guess him learning things is not good, ultimately. But yeah, the day of the ceremony, when that arrives, things go well until Kinich tries to shift the plan from draining all of Kongomado's power, which will kill him, to using the rift portal. And Trinidad is angry and screws it all up. And I think he ends up getting the device destroyed. And Kongomado ends up going, berserk and severely burns Trinidad.
Oh, that's right.
Then something happens where like Kinich uses his ancient name to fix everything, since that option is no longer available to them. So I don't know how he used his ancient name to fix Kongomado.
I think it's the connection with Burkina.
Yeah, I know it's something about that.
Yeah, because as we mentioned earlier, Burkina was the original, not the original name bearer of Malipo, but the original friend of the Mountain King Kongomado. So when Burkina died, they gave all of their powers to Kongomado. And so I think that's why Kinich can get involved in this, because he is like a representative of Burkina almost. And I think that eases Kongomado.
Yeah.
Oh, like he feels his connection to him, to his old friend.
Yeah.
I'll go back to bed, friend. Whatever you want.
Just don't put me in the Night Kingdom.
Yeah, he's just like suddenly not berserk. And then, they figure out a way to put a protective barrier on him so that it keeps his abyssal energy sort of in stasis. And then he tells the tribe, use my body for practice, for fighting practice.
I do it all the time.
Where's it that you meant Kinich? I'm like, wait a second, what?
No.
I didn't know Kinich gave us that.
But so that's why Kongomado is like just hanging out in the cave all the time, and you can find him over and over because he's sort of like Andreas in a way.
Yeah, because he doesn't get hurt, and he gets all excited when he gets his little flame grenades. He's like, "Yay! I love these!" And then he rolls around. The fact that one of his moves is he rolls around on his stomach.
It's cute.
He makes this little face that is so adorable. I want to squish him. I mean, he squishes me most of the time. I wasn't good at that fight in the beginning. I was like, I can't do this one on my own. Like, I need a little bit of help. But you know what? One of the things I thought was interesting, though, is Malipo is a Swahili name that actually means revenge.
Oh, interesting.
I was like, oh, well, Malipo, like, even if you go back to Yupanqui, Yupanqui hanky. The revenge was against Ochka and the Turnfire and stuff like that. So even though the name is still also associated with the Turnfire itself, you can kind of go, oh, that makes kind of sense. Like, they're having revenge for the people because he burned them in a horrible way. Imagine if you were just we know how bad it was when Arlecchino gives that Bernie juice to the kids and it just wipes out their memories. Imagine being Bernie and then just starting to hear Tiffany turn around. Like,
you're gonna have nightmares about this too.
It sticks with me. Like, it really does. Like, it has. This is the one thing, like the one death in this whole game that has got it.
Every time you get heartburn, you're gonna look nervously over your shoulder.
Yeah, I'm like, oh no. I'll be using a mirror to see like what's back there. I wonder if that worked.
Yeah, can you
There's
use
mirrors
and avoid your fate from the turnfire?
Yeah, because if you didn't turn around, I mean, if I just keep walking straight when I'm burning in turnfire, now granted, I'm in a little bit of pain because I'm burning up on the insides.
You need to make a video of you running around Ochka Natlan with Ace of Base, Don't Turn Around playing. Don't turn around, because you're gonna see my skin burning.
Oh,
I don't want you seeing me die.
Oh, that's so good. I'm going to make that for TikTok.
So then the very end involves Enjo again, doesn't it? Apologizing to Huni and Toba.
Yes. He's like, I'm sorry I didn't help you find the babies. But hey, why don't you tell me a little bit more stories? Because that was really, that's what his whole deal was. He was able to go annoy children to get information.
And doesn't he bring up the bungee jumping again?
Yes. The man loves an extreme sport.
Which, like, so does Kinich, but not that much.
But then doesn't he say that when he first got there, someone bungee jumping fell on him? And then it's revealed that it's Nana and that she's alive, and he reunites her with Huni.
I fucking hate it.
So when she leapt off the cliff to kill herself, she landed on Enjo, and he broke her fall and saved her life.
I hate it.
So that's how you go back and forth between whether or not this bitch is dead.
That's me all the time with so many things.
Can we check? That's what, if you don't have a body.
Yeah.
If you don't see a body, guys, they might be experimenting on them with the government. That's all you need to know. So if Moeka suddenly is doing some weird experimental shit, you'll know why. But there's a few other things about Kinich outside of... He has so many stories despite not having stories, if that makes sense. But a lot of what we've been able to kind of compile in this about, like, Kinich's personality is that, generally speaking, he's very kind, but he is a soft-spoken kind. He is the type that will stand away. He will observe the situation, and he will make a decision at some point of what he's going to do. And he also is very, very stingy with money. He is specifically called stingy as well by at least one other character. And it's a lot of his trauma coming out, of course. But some of the things he does that are very kind, he beats up these people who they basically put a commission out that they want Kachina to be assassinated, which is a whole thing in itself.
They want to assassinate her?
Yeah.
Who does?
Those guys that were bullying her because she got an ancient name.
Oh, yeah.
They are such bitches.
So at this point, and this is where I want to start with my little headcanon, where my headcanon, and this is the only ship that I really enjoy in Natlan for the most part, is Kinich and Mualani. I think that they're dating, and I like to think of it as Kachina is Mualani's little sister, and now Kinich is like on overprotective dog mode around Kachina because of that. And Mualani has actually commissioned Kinich before to help train and mentor Kachina. So him and Kachina have gotten close. Of course, he got paid for it. And so he sees this commission asking, basically, it's like a hit on Kachina, and he takes it and he teaches them a lesson instead. And some other things that have been said about him that just are kind. Whenever he goes out on commissions and Veresa is around, she'll actually stop and help him. So one day he took her out to like a meal afterwards to thank her for her help. And according to Ajaw, she ordered 30 portions of pup pops for herself and said that like stingy Kinich almost lost his mind because he didn't expect to have to pay that much. He also, in his voice lines, like, he offers like a wipe for us to wash our hands before like we eat something. And there's one point where we're like in the voice lines where he's like, is the fire smoke bothering your throat? And he like moves in. He's like, you should be able to sleep well now. And he also offers to help us with any of the commissions we take from the Adventurers Guild. So he's a very kind person, even if it is that off-putting kind that we were bringing up earlier. And he is a Saurian hunter, and that is his day job. So while he's in between trying to help the Mountain King, surviving with Ajaw, going on pilgrimages, working for Mawika, he's basically Fiverr for Natlan.
Fiverr.
Yeah, he is Fiverr. Because he started out as a courier. That was like the first job that Elder Leik helped him get, which I'm sure was scary for him because he probably felt like he was following in his father's footsteps. But unlike his father, Kinich probably works 7 days a week, where his dad would work 1 day and then take 3 days off. But he is a leader now among the Saurian hunters, but he does take turns doing other things because no job is below or beneath him. So he's taken jobs for a lot of the characters that we actually know. So like with Eon-san, he actually picks all of her fruits and vegetables for like her protein shakes and her meal preps because she's very specific about what she likes. With Mualani, he's helped mentor Kachina. With Sitlali, he picked up a quote-unquote shipment of Inazuman paper, which really confuses Kinich because he didn't snoop and he didn't put 2 and 2 together that it's probably light novels from the Yai publishing house. And he was like, I don't understand why Sitlali needs paper. Doesn't she use scrolls? And I'm like, oh, you poor soul.
She loves those books too.
Oh, yeah. He makes her day whenever he shows up with those things. He also... My other favorite task that he's done for a character that we know is with Jilonin. He came across a commission one day that someone was looking for like an easy to take care of plant. So he went and got like the seeds and dirt and everything for like this really easy cactus. And he gave it to her. And when he went to get his money for it, he found that she was not able to grow it at all. And it's considered one of his few failures in his commissions. And he loves doing his work. And, you know, Brandon, you mentioned earlier the thing about how he kind of puts his heart into some of the things. And he's like the type of guy who takes a commission when he knows it's wrong, takes the money, and then makes them pay for it. And I really appreciate that about him.
He kind of does that in his teaser. And it kind of almost is a little bit like those bros who wanted to kill Kachina. Because it goes on this commission for hunting a Saurian. He like goes... finds the Saurian and finds out that the Saurian is actually just like a mom who was defending her babies against the poachers because basically there were poachers who wanted him to go kill the Saurian that was like making their lives harder. And he was just like, oh, really? That's what we're doing now? And he takes their money and then he makes Ajaw eat the poachers. I assume he ate the poachers, but that's kind of like he ate the poachers.
I hope he ate them.
He got the money. The Saurian's still alive, and Ajaw has a full belly.
Which, speaking of Ajaw, we didn't talk at all about this, my favorite pairing. So, first off, the Ajaw word of the day is nasty, because he was described by at least 2 characters as nasty in their voice lines about Kinich. Which is wild. And it's sad because people really do take a step back from Kinich because of Ajaw. It's almost like he has like an annoying younger sibling that they're like, ugh, I don't know if we should invite Kinich because he might bring Ajaw. But Ajaw was found on a mountain, basically. He was in like some ancient ruin and he was sealed there. And he's actually considered a relic. And in Natlan, there's a Saurian Relics Association. There's actually a member of that association in Mondstadt on the docks. He is over by that little kid who's like pretending to be a Knights of the Round Table member, trying to pull the sword out.
Yeah, Arthur, he's trying to pull the sword out of the stone. I love those little gotchas around Mondstadt.
Yeah, it's good. They're good nods. And over on that dock that's there's actually a member of the Saurian Relics Association. And so they actually really want Ajaw, and they consider him a relic. Specifically, Kinich says a bona fide relic from the era of dragons. So he says that Ajaw is several millennia years old. And he was locked up in this ruin until one day Kinich showed up. And from my understanding, Kinich was there with like a bunch of people.
Well, yeah, there was earthquake that happened that revealed this ancient ruin. And then there were all these surveying parties that started going in to explore. And then they all kept dying. And then one of them hired Kinich to go in with them. So yeah, he did. They all either died, were wounded, or ran away scared. So he was like the last one standing and the only one to make it to the depths of the ruins. And then he found his little bracelet.
Can we go into this ruin?
I don't know if they've shown us this ruin yet.
Aw.
It hasn't been pointed out, at least. I mean, there's a lot of ruins
Yeah,
that
there's
we
a
go
whole
into.
lot of dragon ruins.
We just don't know which it would be this one. And it would have to be somewhere very dangerous. So, but Kinich basically signed a contract with Ajaw, which took Ajaw out of the ruins. And the contract was basically that Kinich would bring Ajaw with him and show him the world of Teyvat today. And in return, Ajaw would get Kinich's body when he died so that he could become the real Dragon Lord in a human's body. And Ajaw would sometimes, maybe when he kind of feels like it, give Kinich some of his powers. Again, only sometimes maybe if he feels like it, to help him on his journeys. So Kinich got an annoying younger brother that wants his body and wants him dead. And Ajaw got a tour guide.
And Ajaw, whose name means divine lord, by the way, he was one of the 13 dragon lords, which are basically like regional rulers under the pyro dragon sovereign.
The guy who like hid.
Yes. Well, he didn't hide himself. The primordial one trapped him in lava, and he was basically stuck in stasis.
That's Ajaw.
No. That's the pyro dragon sovereign.
Oh, I thought we when the timeline episode we talked about the fact that he like hid until one day he like came out and attacked the Sealies.
We recorded that before the volcano was released in Natlan.
Okay.
Once you do the world quest to finish out the little one storyline, it takes you inside the volcano in Natlan, and you learn a lot of dragon lore during that. And I'm not going to go too deep or too spoilery, but yeah, you do find out that Ajaw was one of the 13 dragon lords under the Pyro Dragon Sovereign. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, Jukoatl. And there's like little, I forget if it's like tablets or scrolls or something that you find while you're exploring in there, and you actually get to read dialogue between the 13 dragon lords. So you can definitely, they all have like very different names, but you could definitely tell which one of them is Ajaw when you read it. And it sort of reveals what happens to all of them.
Okay.
Ajaw is, as far as we know, the only survivor in modern day Teyvat. And I'm sure the only reason he survived is because he was sealed away in a bracelet. And if anyone is, still confused about why he's pixelated, they explain that as his actual real self is sealed in the bracelet, that I'm assuming it's the one, of course, that Kinich is wearing, but that when you see little Ajaw floating around all pixelated, that is him being projected through the bracelet via phlogiston.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, his true form is sealed within the engraved. They call it an engraved wristband. I like to call it a fashion bracelet.
I like to call it a bangle.
A bangle, yeah.
Now, travelers, like a big thing with Ajaw is, as we've mentioned, is that he wants Kinich dead. So anytime like Kinich is putting himself in a dangerous situation, he's cracking jokes. He's like, "You gotta die." He's like, "I'll cut the bungee cord. He 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 he. I'll drop you over the cliff. He 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 he." But there's one time where Kinich actually is almost a goner, and it's actually when he gets his vision. And so he didn't have a vision, but he had an ancient name, and he was in the Night Warden Wars.
Oh my God, not only does Kinich have one of the most fucked up childhoods in the game, he definitely has, I would say, maybe the most fucked up vision story. It is so crazy.
Yeah, and so he was fighting during the Night Warden Wars. He had won the pilgrimage, and he was in there, one of the people fighting. So remember, when you're in there fighting, one of you has to survive in order for you all to get revived. So he ends up in there, and he's feeling like he's on his last limb, but he's the last person alive, so he's trying to keep it together. And he looks up, and who's in front of him but his mother? Because, it's all these spirits being projected down there.
Well, yeah, because This was when the Abyss first started using this power to take the shape of loved ones of the people they're fighting.
So he looked in front of him, and there's his mom that he hasn't seen in who knows how long. And he so badly wanted to ask her about the cricket book, that Elder Leik hates. And he wanted to ask how it ends, but he knew it was just a projection, and he sliced through his mom. And while he was a little distracted, a monster came up, I assumed a Rift Town, slashed him in the back, and he just fell to his knees.
Pierced his whole chest, went through his back, out his chest.
And he could see the blood. He starts to feel dizzy. And Ajaw goes, I fear this is as much power as is mine to display, Kinich. But I swear on my name, Kohol Ajaw, that upon my ascension to your form, you shall be avenged. And Ajaw closes his eyes in a moment of respect, which I thought was a lot for Ajaw. And then when he opened his eyes, he says, Kinich's fallen form had risen, his hands just now bloodless and white, gripping his claymore tightly, and thus did Kinich plunge into the abyssal tide once more, his tireless blade flashing across the battlefield. Recovering from the shock, Ajaw looked closely, and lo and behold, there was a heart-patterned emerald-hued gem now on his chest, where he had been pierced. And where it appeared from he did not know. But from it flowed vibrant life, driving Kinich's unconscious form, transforming him into an indefatigable beast of instinct, tearing into the monsters until every last one was no more. And the next thing Kinich remembers is waking up and knowing that the ode of resurrection brought him back to life. And he's really confused because he was pretty sure he was the last one alive, and then he got stabbed to death. So he goes to ask who the survivor was, and Ajaw goes, what claptrap are you spouting? You did it, you demented, hard-scrabbling, lucky little grasshopper.
He's like, I prefer cricket.
I prefer cricket. Then Ajaw, quote-unquote, splayed out on the floor, clearly frustrated, and threw a stone. And he goes, was gating my succor insufficient for you? Clearly, and now you've gone a vision. Oh, when will your body be mine to use?
So this is absolutely crazy because, first of all, Kinich is Iron Man.
It's so true, he is.
But it's he died, and then his vision, it didn't only bring him back to life, it took his body that was unconscious and fought for him. It totally turned him into super zombie for a few minutes, just long enough to kill the rest of the abyss and allow everyone to resurrect. We've never seen a vision do anything like that.
Think about it, though. We don't know. We debated if somebody decides if you get a vision or if it's some fate thing or whatnot. But imagine if it actually is an Archon. And that Archon was like, fuck that, Ajaw. You not getting his body.
Nahida was like, it's bad enough a Pep is over here. I can't have another dragon out there.
Mm-hmm.
Take this, Kinich.
Yeah. She's like, I'll puppet you up just like my buddy Scaramouche.
Maybe the reserve of Dendro power that's up in Celestia, maybe it has it's a little stained with some bitterness from Rukkhadevata or something. Yeah. So it's I fucking hate the abyss. So when he got that vision, even though it was probably automatic, there was something in it that was just a little extra.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing that I think is really important to pull from this is that whoever grants the visions was able to find him in the Night Kingdom.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of crazy.
Oh, you know what? Maybe the angel down there that created the Night Kingdom, maybe she influenced it.
Oh.
It's possible.
That would explain it.
I like the idea that those Sealies are the ones giving out the visions.
Oh my God, maybe they are.
Oh my God, those little blue guys would hate me and they would not give me a vision.
I mean, maybe not the Sealy, but maybe there's other angels that survived that are doing it.
There's a vision angel.
And, the Lord of the Night could have been the one that gave it to Kinich.
Mm-hmm.
And just the last thing on the visions, Kinich says that there is no cost to using a vision, but it's often the hidden costs that end up being the heaviest to bear when the time comes to pay. So he's a little sus, I think, about his vision. He's like, this thing literally brought me back to life.
Well, you know, he hates getting things for free.
Yeah, that's true. He's like, you literally revived me. Fuck. Like, what do I owe?
Yeah. Who do I have to pay now?
Yeah, exactly.
But it's also kind of the like him getting that vision. It was almost like the end of a really long story arc for him, because when he wakes up in the stadium, he kind of has the realization that he's no longer doing heroic things just for Mora, that he is actually doing it just for the sake of helping, you know, the community and the people, like his loved ones, and because it's the right thing to do. So he's still obviously like going to go after Mora, but he realized that like that wasn't the only reason that he's been doing those things. And he kind of finished the journey that Elder Leik started him out on.
Right. Which, like, I hope Elder Leik is alive to see.
Yeah.
I don't know, like I said, alive, dead, hiding.
I had two voice lines that I wanted to touch on that I thought were funny. Well, one's funny, one's deep. Shilonen's voice line about Kinich and Ajaw is funny. She says, Kinich is nice, but that Ajaw is really hard to be around. Speaking of, where did Ajaw even come from? If he originated from some kind of device, then there is actually a chance that I could make him shut up forever.
Oh my God.
Maybe I should find some time to go over and discuss this with Kinich. So I love that Shilonen is like, let me tinker with that bracelet over there.
Let me save you, Kinich.
So that's fun. I feel like Auroran has the most like succinct, nail on the head voice line about Ajaw and Kinich. He says, Ajaw is an interesting case. He's old, but also young. And Kinich is just the opposite. Young, but also old. So I love that.
It's so good.
Yeah.
And then the only other thing I wanted to bring up, and I wanted your guys' opinion on this. So we have a lot of Dendro characters now, and Kinich is our second Claymore for Dendro, Kaveh being the first.
That sounds right.
I just found it very interesting that Kinich, who is literally described in multiple things as being nimble and fast and swift, was given like the heaviest, chonkiest weapon physically possible. I feel like he should be a polearm or a sword, like something quick and easy, but they gave him like this chonky motherfucker instead.
That is interesting. Maybe it has something to do with how he learned his martial arts by studying animals.
True, because they're probably chonky too.
Yeah, I'm sure the most powerful ones are.
Yeah.
Maybe he's trying to combine that with the, agility of a smaller animal that can zip around.
That's a good point. So that being said, we mentioned, Kirara possibly being out of job earlier, and now she's mad again. We just got over the whole Melty situation. Now she's mad again. So we're going to jump into our mail. Our first message comes from Yuki, and they said, "Hi guys. I've been listening to your podcast nonstop the last few months. You guys are hilarious, and I really enjoy listening to you all. Thank you. I have a question for you. What do you think will happen to the Archons at the end of the game? If Celestia falls, would they lose their godhood? Or will they fight and overthrow Celestia? Do you think that the Traveler will side with the Abyss Twin eventually? I'm really torn, especially because the Traveler seems to be in denial. We've been through so many nations asking where our sibling is, despite all that we have learned, and I wonder if the Traveler does not believe that their twin is with the Abyss."
Well, where to start?
I think an important thing to tackle is just the reminder that there is a difference between Archon and God. So, the Archons are they're gods for the most part that are attached to Celestia. So I don't think if Celestia fell, they'd lose their godhood, but they would lose that special power that they get from being an Archon.
Yeah, they would lose their authority, like their connection to control that element.
Yeah. But they still be a god. If they were originally a god, they'd still be a god.
That's what you believe?
Yeah, I think that they would keep their godhood. They just wouldn't keep their archonness, like that. And there would hopefully be no Celestia to connect to anyway. So hopefully it'd be a little more free across the land.
Yeah, because they were gods before they were archons, because there were gods running around before the Archon War.
Yes, exactly. And also, the one question was, do you think that they'll fight to overthrow Celestia? And I like to think that Neuvillette was kind of a teaser to what the Archons are going to do, where Neuvillette was shown that he should side with the humans and he took on humanity. And I think that the Archons who are currently around will also do the same. And I do think that they'll work with us to overthrow Celestia in the end, if that's what we do.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. And I mean, I know, when that event happened recently where Yai was talking to A about the big battle that's coming up, we're kind of like, are they talking about the Fatui or Celestia or the Abyss or what? If we do think that they're talking about Celestia, they've already, that could be a clue that it is on the horizon, especially since, a lot of people are under the impression that the primordial one is sleeping but is waking up soon.
That's frightening.
Yeah, so I think you're right. I tend to think that an Archon at the end of the game will just maintain their godhood, but I could also see the gods becoming human at the end of the game. And or because I kind of see the elements sort of returning to the dragons, like if they destroy the celestial thrones, because it's a little confusing with what they did in Fontaine with Focalor, because Focalor destroys the celestial throne to restore the elemental authority to Neuvillette, but she has to kill herself to do that. So is there a way to destroy the thrones while keeping the Archons alive is the question.
Yeah, or does it from the side of she had already split herself with Farina? Is that the reason why Farina was released?
She survives, yeah, because she separated her humanity. Yeah, that's a good question. So if the human side stays alive, but the god part dies with the destruction of the celestial throne, then they could turn human, but not die.
Yeah.
And the last part of the question was just about whether or not we think the sibling will end up teaming up with our Abyss twin, or if we're in denial about our Abyss siblings' connection to the Abyss.
I go back and forth on this, but I tend to think that our sibling is dead.
I know, I hate that.
Oh, really? You both think that?
I do.
I don't. I know Brandon does.
I go back and forth, but if they're not dead, they're gonna die.
Wow, you're sounding a lot like me, Brandon.
I think they're probably no. I think they're no. What convinced me more is Star Rail, because they've talked about the Sea of Flowers in Genshin. That is brought up again in the current region of Star Rail, and there's basically this goddess of death, and her domain is a Sea of Flowers.
Oh, interesting.
So it's sort of similar imagery of just a sea of flowers, and that's where death lives. So it kind of pushed me a little further in that direction, because that's sort of where the siblings are supposed to be reunited, right? At the Sea of Flowers.
I do feel like for me, I think that the whole point of the journey we're on is that we're going to take the opposite path of our sibling. That's the whole point. And that's kind of the whole, I feel like we're being Neuvilletted too, right? The Archons are showing us the certain things they want because they want us to take their side. They want us to be with them. And I do think that our sibling is tainted because they were traumatized. They watched all this crazy stuff happen, but the Archons were just pawns in a game from Celestia. And I do think that the Archons that are left want to change something. And by the Archons that are left, it's only Venti and Zhongli. So it's also not fair to hold the new Archons accountable for things that dead people did 500 years ago. So I do think that our sibling will see that and see the changes of the world and hopefully stick the path and not help the Abyss, because we haven't really seen any true reason to side with the Abyss yet.
Now, why do you say that Venti and Zhongli are the only Archons left?
Well, they're the only Archons that were Archons before the Cataclysm, when the Abyss stuff.
That they were okay. I'm
eh? They're the only ones who were around when our sibling was oh, this is fucked.
I also sometimes think they're going to do something at the end of the game, we're going to find out that what really happened was we were the bad twin all the way up until the end of some certain event that happens. And then our sibling along like somehow utilizes Istaroth and sends both of us back in time at the expense of their life. But we get reset back in time on that beach while they are their memories or their past is scattered throughout all these key moments that will propel us in the direction that we should have taken.
That's interesting. Almost like they're pretending to be the bad guy so that we'll do the right thing.
Right. Like to steer us in there, and that they're already dead, but what we're seeing are these fragments of them that were scattered throughout time when something was reset.
Interesting. It's so deep.
That's very Doctor Who. That's something that they've kind of done in Doctor Who to a degree.
Okay. What do you think about the Abyss Twin, Tiff?
I've kind of always felt that in the end, one of them is going to realize that they're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I flip-flopped a few times where I'm like, oh, we're going to show our twin that they were wrong in taking this side of the abyss. But then I think like once watching the Sumeru Dainsleif quest with Carrie Bear, the first Carrie Bear quest line, I was like, okay, maybe we're wrong. Like maybe we're on the wrong side. You always think you're the right person. You're always doing the right thing, but in somebody else's story, you're the evil person. So maybe like we're going to be like, oh shit, like I can't believe we were helping this all along. So I kind of go back and forth, but you know, I feel like in the end, there's going to be something that has to bring them together. And whether or not that's like wholeheartedly one's right and one's wrong, or there's like a middle ground that kind of goes to it. I think they are going to rejoin forces and together do something that's going to be very beneficial to the world.
It's so funny because I felt the opposite with Kari Bear. I was like, oh yeah, my sibling's evil. I was like, they joined the fucking abyss. They talked to a giant crystal dildo. We're fucked.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, seeing what happened to Kari Bear just made me go, like, I mean, I always knew what happened to them, but like, I was like, damn, that was really fucked up what Celestia did to them. I mean, it still might come out that, like, you know, in Conria, they were like, you know, making evil babies or something.
Okay.
I'm trying to come up with something that would make them really bad.
They're just Conrians. That was it. They just existed.
Like, what made Celestia like? Is Celestia just power hungry, or were they doing something really fucked up that Celestia was like, ah, fuck that?
Hopefully, we'll find out soon.
Yeah.
But Yuki, thank you for the question.
Thank you,
Yuki.
We do have one more message, and our next message comes from Aziram, and they said, and this is my favorite mail that we've ever received, just so you both know. Dear Tiff, respectfully, what the fuck? No! I could maybe, just maybe, look past the Goru slander, but calling Kokomi's story quest boring? How dare you? By no means was it perfect. The writing for Kokomi could be a lot better, but it wasn't boring at all. To think you just openly trash talk two of my favorite things. Have you no soul, Tiff? I thought we were friends, but maybe I thought wrong. And then in parentheses, they said, for legal reasons, this is all a joke. Sorry, Tiff, you're still cool to me, even if you trash talk things I like. I just had to get that off my chest. I'm very passionate about Kokomi. And that's all I've got to say. Keep up the amazing work, and I'm super excited for the next episode.
Aziram, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, Aziram. But
I wish I had
sucks.
a bell. I would be ringing it and going, shame, shame, shame.
I will apologize for my Kokomi slander.
Wow, only half of it?
Yeah. Guru is the worst.
Aziram's gonna unsubscribe now.
No, don't go anywhere. I love you,
Leave
Aziram.
sweet little Goro alone.
Yeah!
No. I thought about it for 2 seconds.
He's in the corner hugging his tail.
But I did say, though, that Kokomi's did get better toward the end. And it was very exciting when, you know...
It was almost over. Tiff's beating around the bush of what her truth is.
I'm sorry, Aziram. I apologize. But not about the Goro thing.
Aziram, when I was looking through the mail and I saw this, I died. And I was like, I can't wait to answer this on air. The Thank you for the laughs, the question, thought, whatever it might be. That being said, that is all the time that we have for today, travelers. Thank you for swinging through the treetops with us and Kinich today. It was heavy but fun all at the same time, and now we know a little bit more about dragons too. If you like this episode or you want to let us know what topics you'd like to see in the future, you can email us at talesofteyvatpod@gmail.com. Do not blame me if you get an image of chalk via email back. That is not me. That is the murderous man who is answering our emails occasionally.
We make good choices here.
Yeah, we make great choices. Hey, as long as I hired Albedo and not Susbedo, we're all good. And I'm pretty sure
Which one is it? We'll never know.
We'll know soon enough. I would know. I'll know. Don't worry.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, if you like this podcast, you can also rate us on any podcasting platforms to let other travelers know that they can find some fun, kooky lore over here. Additionally, you can check out our Ko-Fi, where you could buy us a cup of coffee, Ko-fi, whatever, tea. You can check out our merch shop. Additionally, you can feel free to follow us on Instagram, Tales of Teyvat Pod, or Twitter, Tales of Teyvat. We are also on Blue Sky and Threads under those same usernames. And lastly, feel free to check out our 18 plus Discord server, where we talk not only about Genshin, but about Honkai, other games, touching grass occasionally, and a whole bunch of other fun stuff as well. You can check that out by going to bit.ly/Shades of Teyvat, no spaces, no uppercases. And again, that's an 18 plus Discord server, so definitely check your ID at the door. Kaya checks those, so be careful. Next week, we're going to be talking about the one character everyone always says you shouldn't C6, even if you get the C6, Bennett.
Benny boy.
Until then, safe journeys, travelers. We'll see you next time.
Bye, Enjo nerds.
I totally betrayed
I
you.
totally betrayed you.
Enjo Nation. You know, I still have Uncle Glasses in